One of the things I want to talk about just quickly here is that what I'm trying to do here is giving you the tools you need so that you can make judgments about the market on your own, right? So it's not just about you coming in and listening to me make some sort of a projection. I want you to understand how I make these projections or how I form my opinions on where the market's likely to go so that you can do that on your own as you advance in trading. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk to you about some range projections and so forth. Before we do, though, just a review. So last week, or actually for the last several weeks, I've been talking about I was more towards the bullish camp than bearish. In other words, the probabilities were that the market was going to be going up. If I was going to be taking on some risk, it would be to the downside. Okay, so again, time frame is important, right? So I know some of you are trading intraday. If you're trading intraday, your longer term thoughts on the market should influence you. However, we have to be aware that if we have a longer term bullish outlook, it doesn't mean that we cannot have a short term or certainly an intraday outlook that is very bearish. Okay, time frames are important with technical analysis, and you always want to keep that in context. Time frame of your analysis and match that up to your trade. In other words, I might be very bullish in the long term, but you might see me taking bearish moves maybe in the middle of the day, or for an adjustment. You might see an adjustment that might not make sense somewhere, and there's a reason for that, right? And again, it has to do with the duration of my trading strategy that I'm trading, or how much time is left in my trading strategy, what my overall objective is with that strategy, and so forth. Okay, and all that's going to influence how you adjust, when you adjust, and so forth. So as we were saying, over the last several weeks, I was relatively bullish. I want to talk to you about why that's the case. The chart patterns in the SPX right now are rather complex. So sometimes we have very simplistic chart patterns on different time frames. Sometimes we have more complex chart patterns, and we have some complex things going on as far as chart patterns. And when we start talking about index comparison on how they're doing, we have some patterns that are relatively simplistic. And again, we have some that are more complex. Sometimes they are in complete unison with one another. Sometimes they appear to be out of sync with one another. And all these things are clues on where things are going. So as far as market thoughts in general, we know we have support area down here at around 36.70, 36.80. We know that we have our resistance area up here around 42.30. Okay, big picture stuff. We know we were near the bottom of our range. If you're looking at this chart pattern in general, we are setting higher lows. Okay, so we have our low here, we have our low here, we have our low here, higher, higher, higher. So our main lows. Now we have shorter term time frames, we're getting some higher highs, lower lows, which is making this a little bit more complex. However, if you zoom out and kind of make a smooth line, you can see that, oh, look, we have a low here. We have a high, we have a higher high. Kind of zoom down. This primary low is lower before we launch back up to our resistance area. We have a higher high. We have a little lower high here. But again, if you take a look at the general flow, this is not the bottom yet, right? The bottom should be a little bit closer. This is our next low. It's higher. And now, of course, we're coming back higher. If you take a look at my pink lines here, this is the general speed at which the market usually runs from the bottom to the top. And I can take this all the way back into here. Okay, and I can make my general run from the bottom to the top. And I can see that that general run is at about this angle or this speed. I can see this general run is at about that speed, maybe slightly slower. This one's at about that speed. This one is very likely to be at about that speed. Okay, so when I'm looking at the move the general move we're going to get from the bottom to the top, it should be about that speed. Now the question becomes, well, where's the top and where's the bottom, right? So here I can shift into my shorter term time frames, or I can even see this on the daily charts. This is a inverted head and shoulders pattern, and it's a bit of a complex head and shoulders pattern, but it's something you should recognize. And realistically, you can see this just by drawing a downtrend line. Like if I came into here and I simply drew a downtrend line, it would be very similar to what I have here. Okay, basically I'm getting a low, I get a lower low, I get a higher low, I have a resistance area, I have a breakout of that area. That's going to give me a price pattern target. How does that price pattern target line up with the rest of my thoughts on the marketplace? Well, if I were to measure from here to here and here to here and set a projection for a price pattern target, it would be about 4,200. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail there. You can do that yourself later, but you're going to have so many points here that you're going to measure from the neckline to the head. You're going to have a breakout, and then you're going to have a target from that line breakout point. That's going to give you a price pattern target. Sometimes that price pattern target makes sense within the context of longer term. Sometimes it makes no sense whatsoever. Well, what do we have here?